Jets will try and get into the win column Sunday in Tennessee for a Week 2 game. This is really big, and we'll discuss why today on Locked On Jets.
You are Locked On Jets, your daily New York Jets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. This is the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Friday, September 13th, 2024, and I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com. Thanking you so much for making the show your first listen or first watch every day. Subscribe to the show for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you'll get new episodes as soon as they're posted. If you enjoy the show and are listening on the podcast source, please give it a 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube and enjoy the show, give this episode a big thumbs up. It helps us out and helps other Jets fans find the podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Well, the Jets play in Tennessee this weekend, Week 2 action. Jets are back in the Sunday afternoon time slot. And I think this is a very big game. The Jets and Titans both entered this game 0-1, both teams looking for their first win of the season. Now, whenever you're 0-1, Week 2 is very important because you do not want to fall 0-2. And, it's very simple. I know you can say you're only 2 games into the season. Look, if you're in baseball and you play 162 games, a 0-2 start's not a big deal. If you're in the NBA and you play 82 games, an 0-2 start's not a big deal. You're in the NHL and you play 82 games, 0-2 start's not a big deal. When you only play 17 games, 0-2 start's pretty big because the Jets will be more than 10% of their way through the season once this game is over. And one way to think about it is, let's just say hypothetically, the Jets need to go 10-7 to make the playoffs this year. It could be 9-8, but I think 10 puts you at a safe level. So let's just say the goal is to go 10. Now, I think the Jets' goal is higher, but let's just say to get to the playoffs, Jets need to go 10-7. Well, if you start 0-2, that means you need to go 10-5 over your final 15 games. So you essentially need to play 667 football the rest of the way. Compare that with a team that starts 2-0. If you start 2-0 and then go 10-7, you just need to go 8-7 the rest of the way. So those first 2 games matter. And I spend this week talking about how you should not overreact to one game because it is one game, but one game matters. And 2 games, again, that gets you more than 10% of the way through your season. And the statistics are daunting when we talk about teams that start 0-2, the percentage of them that make the playoffs. Now, it's difficult to compare apples to apples because we are in a new era. We're in an era where we have a 17-game season. So if you fall 0-2, you have an extra game to recover. You also have 7 playoff spots. In the past, there were only 6. This is the 5th year where there are 7 playoff teams. This is the 4th year of the 17-game schedule. So we don't have a lot of apples to apples comparisons, but it's not that different from 6 and 16. And the numbers were very daunting. The numbers are very daunting for the reasons I mentioned. It's easy to just dismiss it's only 2 games. And look, it is only 2 games. The season's not over on paper. The Jets will keep fighting, and there are ways to recover from an 0-2 start to make the playoffs. But I just laid out for you why it's so difficult and why I think it's easy to understate the significance. And we never want to overstate the significance of a loss. That's why I've been trying to keep some perspective on the Jets losing to San Francisco Week 1. But heading into the season, I think a lot of us thought Week 1 may be a loss. Like, I was optimistic heading into the game. I actually thought the Jets had a good shot going in because I thought some things were lining up for them, and then the Jets did not perform. But we always knew that Week 1, that was a tough game. The good thing was that you had what looked like an easier game on paper Week 2 in Tennessee, and you have an easier game on paper Week 3 with New England, and then Denver, and then a Minnesota team with Sam Darnold at quarterback. The schedule really opens up for the Jets. So, we entered that Week 1 game saying, it's Week 1, it matters. It's still a game that counts on the standings, but, you can live with a loss. But baked into that analysis was the idea that if the Jets lost Week 1, they would win this game Week 2. And, even going deeper than this, because I think whenever you're 0-1 heading into Week 2, it's a very important game. For this particular Jets team, the game's even more significant. I think this game is more significant than it is for your typical 0-1 team. And that deals with the expectations the Jets have this year. It deals like, quite frankly, the way they lost that game Monday night. I mean, that was not a tight game against an elite opponent that you lose on a walk-off field goal. It was not a game where you're back and forth and you're driving into their territory and you have a drive that stalls at the 15-yard line as time runs out. It wasn't a game where the Jets looked like they were on the San Francisco level. So I think there are questions now about this team, and that they're fair. And I think that one of the big questions I have is, are the Jets actually an elite team that can play on San Francisco's level that just had an off night Monday night? Or was that game a sign that this team is not as good as they made themselves out to be? And I think we can begin to answer that. We won't have a full answer by Sunday nights, but we at least will have the beginnings of a framework in which we can answer the question. And I think that this game, look, I'm not going to say the season's over again. You don't want to overstate things, but 0-2 is a big deal. But how do the Jets play this game? And how do they, if they win this game, how do they win it? If they go out there and they look like the better team, they go out and absolutely dominate Tennessee in all phases of the game. If they're always comfortable ahead, you play the entire second half, double-digit lead, the way San Francisco looked Monday night against the Jets. Then I think you can maybe exhale a little bit. You can say, okay, this team's going to be okay. We know, long way to go. Of course, 15 games after this one, but you'll head into Sunday night feeling a little bit better and maybe a little less worried about the team than you were after that week 1 game against San Francisco. Whereas if the Jets lose, or even if they have a shaky win, maybe you don't feel that good. Maybe the Jets just don't play that crisply. Maybe it's the type of game where you feel like they just kind of skated by and they won because the team has more talent. That's not the type of win. Look, you always take a win. A win's a win, but that's not the type of game that will inspire confidence that this Jets team is going a long way. Now, of course, winning is much better than losing, and you'd rather answer those questions than starting the season 0-2. But I think that there would be some uneasiness heading into week 3, Thursday night against New England. And I think there's another aspect of this, and I almost hate to bring this up, but I think it is worth noting is that this is not a team that has a lot of experience playing together. This is kind of like a new team that was built on the fly. So when the Jets this offseason and the Jets compared themselves, this is not just the media did it, but the Jets also did it themselves, where the Jets are trying to compare themselves to the elite teams in the conference, the Kansas Cities, your Baltimores, your Buffaloes, your Cincinnati's, the teams that were expected to be at the top of the conference heading into the season. And those teams all have experience playing together. Those teams have experience winning games. Those teams have experience, making deep playoff runs. Kansas City has experience winning the Super Bowl. The Jets don't. And the Jets are kind of like a theory. This team, this team, do the pieces fit? And one of the things that could be a challenge in a situation like this, where you're kind of trying to elevate your team to that level, is if things don't go well in the early stages, you don't have that winning experience to fall back on. The teams that I mentioned, they've been through rough times together. They know they can get through it. This Jets team does not. They do not have guys who have been through the battles together. And sometimes, things kind of snowball in that situation. Sometimes when you have high expectations, you haven't done it before, you haven't fought with these guys through rough times. Sometimes things can kind of fall apart. And, there's always that one team every year that gets a lot of hype that does not meet expectations, and they start getting the glare of the spotlight, and things kind of start going downhill. That's the fate the Jets want to avoid. And they can do that by going out there and playing to their potential Sunday and registering a convincing win. Failing that, just avoid the 0-2 start. I mean, look, I would not love a shaky win. I would not love a win where they're behind in the second half and maybe you skate by a field goal or something like that. You take it over a loss. But really, what you want to see this Jets team look like it's played to its potential. And what you want to come away from this game thinking is, Jets has had an off night Monday in San Francisco. This team's good. This team's up there. This team's really good. That's what's on stake. That's what's at stake Sunday. For any 0-1 team, week 2 is important. For this Jets team, it's even more important. Now, here on the Locked On Jets podcast, let's talk about what needs to happen for the Jets win. And I think everybody knows that there's one position group that was a huge disappointment that needs to come to play. It's the defensive line. What can they do? How does this matchup look for them? We'll talk about that as we continue here on this Friday edition of Locked On Jets. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for their role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. I mean, we're about to talk about the Jets defensive line. Jets brought in a lot of new defensive linemen this offseason. Maybe they should have depended on LinkedIn Jobs and found some better linemen. I joke. Hopefully those guys will bounce back. But you're a small business. You need to hire quality people. And you should know that LinkedIn is not just a jobs board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who are not actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking at LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. And on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and may not have the time or resources to hire. So LinkedIn is constantly finding new ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is also brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you now. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So if you're a Jets fan, week 1 was in prime time. Week 2 is not. If you're not in the New York market, you need the NFL Sunday Ticket. Otherwise, you're depending on your local station. So again, head over to FanDuel. A $5 bet gets you a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. If that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's Double Your Winnings for all of Sunday, September 15th. Pre-game moneyline bets. Profit Boost will be live starting yesterday. Use your account page now to learn more about your boost. Jets are 4.5 point favorites over Tennessee on the road, according to FanDuel. So go check it out. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jets your first listener, first watch every day. A big shout out to you every day, as this is a daily podcast given to New York Jets. We have new episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday. And for your second listen, head on over to Locked On NFL. The new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland, you got to meet yesterday on our crossover show, kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And today we are preparing you for Week 2 action. The Jets visit the Tennessee Titans, game in Nashville Sunday. First time these teams have played in 3 years. In fact, the last time these teams played, it was 2021. It feels like a very long time ago because the Titans were the team with big expectations that year. The Jets were kind of trying to rebuild around a young quarterback, and that was a game the Jets won in overtime. It was an absolute thriller. Jets entered that game winless, and then Zach Wilson hit a bunch of big passes on broken plays, and Jets ended up winning in overtime. It was one of the fleeting great moments in Zach Wilson's career. Now the tables are kind of turned, where the Jets are the team with expectations, and the Titans are the team kind of trying to bounce back. But the Jets are trying to bounce back because they had an awful Week 1 loss in San Francisco. I think if you watch that game, there's one unit that really stood out above others for futility. And that might sound harsh, but if you watch that game, you know it was not. And that unit was the defensive line. There was really only one hit in the competitive portion of the game by defensive lineman Quinton Williams. There were no sacks. Michael Clemens had a garbage time sack, which I don't know how much that really counts. But the point is that Jets pass rush did not get home. As we know, Jets had a lot of turnover on their defensive line this offseason. You had Bryce Huff and John Franklin Myers, 2 good pass rushers, walk out the door. Quinton Jefferson, who had a very good season last year in a part-time role, walked out the door. In comes Javon Kinlaw. In comes Hassan Reddick, but not really. Jets were looking for Will McDonald to take a big step in year 2. And Jets did not get what they needed Week 1 against San Francisco. The pass rush did not deliver by any stretch of the imagination. The sacks that they had, 2 of them were from guys in the secondary, and then there was the Clemens garbage time sack, and Clemens had an awful game in general. Titans have a mistake-prone young quarterback. You heard Tyler Rowland, the madman, who also is our host on Locked On NFL here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You heard him yesterday talk about how Will Levis can be forced into mistakes. How Will Levis can make we know that. Look, we've experienced that over the last 15 years. The young quarterback who is mistake-prone, who can throw the game away. And look, there's no better way to do it than to get in the quarterback's face. It's time for some of these Jets to step up. Will McDonald's a guy I had my eye on. I talked about him through much of the offseason. I talked about him leading up to Week 1. This is a guy who needs to step up. He was a first-round pick a year ago. And we all remember what a controversial pick that was. We all remember what a shocking pick that was. This was not a guy who was on anybody's radar. I've joked about this on the show that, in the lead up to the NFL draft in 2023, I did not mention Will McDonald once. And I wondered whether I let you down. I was like, was I not prepared enough? And then I went through Twitter. I did a search on Will McDonald. Literally nobody who covers the Jets said anything about this dude heading into the draft. The Jets thought they found somebody. And, that was a really troubling game because he did not look physically capable of handling an NFL workload on the defensive line. He just got shoved around. He got pushed around. He got manhandled. It was an awful performance by Will McDonald. Now, some guys need to step up. Jermaine Johnson had a terrible game week 1. Quinnen Williams had a bad game week 1. Those are guys I have faith in. But I don't think there was a single Jets defensive lineman who can come away from that game saying they played well. I have faith Jermaine's going to bounce back. I have faith Quinnen's going to bounce back. The other guys, they need to show it. Can Javon Kinlaw had a couple decent pass rush reps. He wasn't that good. But we all know that maybe the bigger issue, and the pass rush is going to be important because this Titans offensive line was bad in week 1 against the Chicago Bears. They allowed 16 pressures and less than 40 dropbacks for Will Levis. And 4 of their 5 starters allowed multiple pressures. So this is a line that really had a lot of holes in it week 1. So an opportunity for a bounce back game, an opportunity for a get right game, a game where the Jets can kind of soothe some nerves. If the Jets don't have a big pass rushing game here, then it is time to be very worried about this pass rush. But maybe even the bigger concern is the run defense because the Jets got gashed 180 yards, allows 4.7 per carry. Look, there's no schematic fix for something like this. Even if the Jets struggle with the pass rush, you can start blitzing more, I guess. There's at least a few schematic things you can do if you don't have a good pass rush because you have good corners in the back of the defense. You have Sauce, DJ, Carter. You can blitz more because the back of your defense could hold up. I don't know if there's a schematic fix for the Jets run defense. You can drop an extra safety into the box, but the Jets tried to do that. They still got gashed in the run game. And this is a Tennessee team that, they did not pass protect well in week 1. They ran the ball very effectively. They're 2 running backs, Tony Pollard, Ty J. Spears, both average over 5 yards per carry. This was a run game that now it's against the Bears, which I don't know how good the Bears are, but this Jets defense, look, it's just about doing a better job. The Jets were absolutely manhandled in the trenches on Monday night. And if these guys don't play better, and look, it was bad at the defensive end spot. Again, Jermaine was shoved around, which I think Jermaine will bounce back because Jermaine's been a good run defender both years. Even his rookie year where he wasn't as dynamic of a pass rusher, he was still a very good run defender. Michael Clemens has to step up. And Michael Clemens had an awful game week 1. He did not play well at all. Will McDonald, I don't know if Will McDonald's ever going to be a good run defender. Defensive tackle spot was also an issue. Quinnen did not do a good job taking on double teams, but Quinnen's a great player. I don't worry about Quinnen, but I do worry about that second defensive tackle spot because Solomon Thomas got thrown around. Kinlaw in the run game was a disaster. Jalen Holmes, not a guy I really want to see on the field. And it's as simple as this. The Jets don't play. The Jets get manhandled like that. This is, sometimes the game of football is complicated. Sometimes it's simple. Evaluating the Jets' run defense is simple. They got manhandled. They got mauled by an offensive line. Look, against a team that has a dynamic offense, a team that has a lot of playmakers, but a team that on paper does not have a great offensive line. I know Trent Williams is a great player individually, but that's not a line you look at as one of the elite offensive lines in the league. Well, this week the Jets need to bounce back. And if the Jets get gashed again in the run game, it's time to worry. The Head Your Locked On Jets podcast, we'll talk about the other side of the ball, the offense. Also a spot where the Jets need to bounce back. Not a very good performance week 1 against the 49ers. What can they do to get on track? We'll talk about that continuing here on this Friday game preview edition of Locked On Jets. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. And PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less than on 2 to 6 players' stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quickly as 15 minutes. And PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup's not perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL. It's one word with no space. LOCKEDON on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. This is the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Friday. We're getting ready. Jets-Titans Week 2 action, a very, very big game for the Jets. I mentioned in the first segment, I think whenever you're in Week 2 and you're 0-1, it's important because you do not want to start 0-2. And as I mentioned on Monday, I wasn't that alarmed by the Jets losing to San Francisco, but I've been saying for 4 months that it's not a big deal if the Jets lose to the 49ers Week 1 because the 49ers are a great team. But that's contingent on the Jets winning some games after that. So this is where the rubber hits the road. This is where the Jets have to win. It's a big deal if the Jets don't win this game. And it's not exactly like I'll take a win any way I can get it. But if the Jets don't look dominant in this game, I'd be a little disappointed. But to be dominant, the offense needs to show up. And it's interesting with the Jets. For years, I felt like the Jets have turned in there are games where the Jets get blown out and they turn in lousy defensive performances. And the defense kind of gets off the hook because the offense was just so unbelievably bad that people just kind of gloss over what the defense did. Monday night was the opposite, where the defense was just so unbelievably bad that people kind of ignored. The offense was not very good either. I mean, the offense put up 13 points before the backups came in. The offense really only had one good drive all game. It was that drive in the first quarter where they scored the touchdown to take the fleeting, what turned out to be a fleeting lead. And there's some things that need to change on offense. First of all, the play calling. I mean, 5 drives first half, 3 of them they go run first and second down. That's not good enough. The second and long runs, 6 times they faced a second and long, 5 times they ran. That's awful play calling. I mean, look, any play in the NFL, any play call can in theory work because at the end of the day, it's about execution. You have professional football players. There's nothing inherent that prevents you from executing a play call. But if you look over long-term trends, there are some plays that are more effective than others. And these first down runs, especially the second and long runs, they are very inefficient because they tend to put you behind the sticks. They put you in tough situations. The toughest down to execute in the NFL is third and long. And while your players can execute on first and second down runs, there's no easier way to get into third and long than just run the ball constantly. Now, the run game has to be better. The run blocking has to be better. It was not very good. Breece Hall did not have a big game either. But when I was watching it on the film, I felt like there was really only one run where Breece left something on the field. It was actually the second play of the game on offense for the Jets, where he took a kind of a pitch, and the outside was sealed off. I mean, if Breece busts that thing outside, he may go the distance. Instead, he cut it inside. That was really the only time I thought Breece left something on the field. It was just not good run blocking, and I thought the pass protection. I think it was bad. Maybe I feel like over the last couple of days, maybe I've been a little too critical, but I don't think it was as good as the numbers suggest. I think a lot of it had to do with Rodgers getting the ball out quickly. I think a lot of it had to do with the Jets trying to throw a lot of short passes. Look, the offense needs to start making plays, and I have some concerns about this just because I think with Robert Saleh and Nathaniel Hackett, there might be this philosophical idea that the offense is there to stay out of the way and that you're leaning on the defense to win games. Well, based on what we had Week 1, I don't know if that philosophy is going to work unless the defense plays a lot better. But even if the defense plays a lot better, do you want to have a slugfest against Tennessee that's 17-13 that comes down to the last play? You want to go out there and score points. You want to go out and crush Tennessee. So Jets need to open up this offense, and guys need to play better. It's interesting. I mentioned this yesterday with Tyler Rowland, is that since March or April of last year, all we've done is talk about Aaron Rodgers with all the anticipation. And, we went into Week 1 last year saying, finally, we're going to get to see Rodgers play with the Jets. And then he goes down. So essentially, it's like another year of anticipation. And then Week 1 comes and it's like Rodgers didn't play that big of a role in the game. I mean, he played okay. I don't think there was a lot wrong with how he played. I thought there were a couple of throws that, maybe he missed, but I don't think he was the reason the Jets lost. I thought, it was a pretty good performance in context. I think everybody else around him was awful. We need Rodgers to be relevant in these games. Look, I get it. He's 40. I've talked about the need to lean on Breece a little bit more. Rodgers clearly. I've been saying this for a long time. I don't know why people were surprised that Rodgers has mobility issues. He's 40. He's coming off an Achilles injury. Two things that rob you of your mobility are age and Achilles injuries. But he's not going to be able to make as many big plays. But we saw the arm is still good enough for him to make some big time throws. And yeah, you want to lean into Brees more than maybe you would have 5-10 years ago with Rodgers. You want to lean, Rodgers might need his running game to pick him up a little bit more than it did in the past, but not to that. Jets went way too far to the extreme. There's degrees. There's the happy medium you have to find where you're leaning on the run game a little bit more to take some pressure off Rodgers, but that can't be the whole offense. You've got to lean into this. You got to lean into your playmakers. And look, can Mike Williams get on the field? Can they get Mike Williams on the field a little bit more? I understand he's coming back from an injury, but I don't think he played enough week one. If he couldn't play more than that week one, I don't even know why they activated him. Look, if Mike Williams can't play a decent share of snaps, don't activate him because I don't think he's going to help the team. So a lot the Jets have to get going on the offensive side of the ball. It's a lot of the focus rightly was on the defense week one, but you can miss that the offense was not very good either. Anyway, that's all for today's episode. This has been the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day is our motto. So if you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button where you're watching or listening so you'll never miss an episode. If you enjoy the show and are listening on a podcast, please a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube and enjoy the show, please a big thumbs up. Helps us out, helps other Jets fans find the show. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Enjoy the game. We'll be back after the game to talk about what happened.